Hello and welcome back to the Villa podcast. It is I, your solo host, Dan Wiseman, coming to you after Villa wrap up their pre-season games. The fixture list is done. The summer of testing and trialing and fitness and running and all the different experiments that we've seen you and I run over the last month or so has come to an end. The Villa have won 2-1 today at the Mestalla, playing Valencia for the Orange Trophy that Villa have, say, proudly lifted. They sent John McGinn out. He received the trophy. That will look nice behind someone's desk at reception somewhere in the north stand, you imagine. But still, it's a piece of silverware. Hopefully not the final piece of silverware that we'll see Villa win on the continent this year. But nonetheless, a very good showing from Villa after what's been a pretty good pre-season on the whole. We've gone unbeaten against generally a pretty high calibre of opposition. From you look at from playing Warsaw and the test that they provided on that first day to B-string team of Villa players to 3 Premier League opposition in the Premier League Summer Series out in the States, to coming back to Warsaw to play Lazio at the Bescot before finishing this trip with a visit to Valencia at the Mestalla. It's been a pretty testing pre-season, and generally Villa have coped with it really well. So we're just going to run you through the game quickly for those that didn't see it. Obviously, it was kind of behind a paywall on Villa TV, but the goals are out there on social. But I'll run you through the game quickly before we look back at pre-season as a whole, what it looks like for the Villa and how, given that we're now just 6 days away from that big season opener at St James's Park, how Villa are shaping up and what we can maybe expect from that lineup as we still look to bounce back from a couple of selection dilemmas and a few injuries too. But no, on the whole, very good showing from Villa today. A little bit of context around Valencia and the type of side that we played today. They're a really interesting team, very hard to gauge. They had a really poor season in La Liga last season. Looked like they were going to be getting relegated for the most part, spent good chunks of the season in the relegation zone after what was a pretty comfortable season the year before. They finished 9th, but it really was only until May when Valencia pulled 2 massive wins out the bag in what I think were back-to-back games against Celta Vigo and then against Real Madrid that really saved their season, meant that they finished 2 points clear of the drop zone. The club have been on a really tricky decline under the ownership of Peter Lim and all the problems that have arisen along the way. They're not still supposed to be playing at the Mestalla. There's been a stadium rebuild that's been on and off and on and off, and who knows what the situation is there. But it means that Villa have had the privilege of playing one of the most storied grounds of European football. I'm super happy for the fans that were out there that managed to see Villa there, because we'll probably never see our club play there again, the chances are. And so very lucky for all the fans that were there that they got to see that, and they were in fine voice. So shout out to all you guys that were out there represent the Villa in Spain. But pre-season has been promising for Valencia, and this is what's important to caveat, is that they're not the side that they once were. They're not the side that Unai Emery once managed, but pre-season has been good. They've won 4 games out of 4 prior to this game against Villa, including one against Notts Forest. Actually, they won 1-0 and picked up a recent win against Alaves, 2-0 as well at the Mestalla. They've conceded just 1 goal in all of their pre-season games. So similar to Lazio, who we made light work of, Valencia have looked pretty good in pre-season. Villa looked pretty comfortable. We opened the scoring through Ollie Watkins. It's a bit of a mess in the Valencia kind of midfield and back line. Javi Guerra picks up the ball and attempts to play quite a simple pass back towards Pepe, who lets it run through his body, thinking that his defence is close behind him. Mukhtar Diakhaby, who he assumed the ball would be rolling through to, is quite a way off, and it's easily picked up by Ollie Watkins. Takes one nice touch to get it out of his feet, and then a quick snapshot on his right, down to Georgi Mamardashvili's right, and it finishes really nicely in the bottom corner from about just outside the edge of the area, about 19 yards or so. It's a really good finish past one of the most promising young goalkeepers, not just in La Liga, but in the whole of Europe at the moment. It's a really good goal indeed. And then Villa were in control of it for the most part. We went into the half. I'm very pleased with the performance. We then made it 2-0 in the second half. Instant impact from Felipe Coutinho, who I'm going to say it quite quietly, but I think is pretty bright in pre-season, though we've seen Fabrizio Romano post that whilst the game was going on, he is currently the subject of interest from teams in Qatar after Saudi Arabian clubs look to him throughout July. So it'd be interesting to see how long we have Felipe for, but generally he's looking quite good in pre-season, makes a really nice assist for Buendia, carries the ball a good 20 yards or so, gets his head up around the edge of the area, picks out an onrushing Buendia, who sorts his feet out really nicely at quite quick speed to finish without even putting Mamadashvili into a dive, finishes really nicely into the bottom right-hand corner. Villa kind of slacked off a little bit after that. It's understandable. I think we went into preservation mode. The game was said and done. Everyone's head automatically goes to the season opener against Newcastle. It's kind of preventing any injuries or anything like that. And Valencia did get one back through an own goal from Callum Chambers. Ball comes in from a corner, almost to catch Emi Martinez out. Really swings back in towards his near post, but the goalkeeper's kind of covering the back stick. And Chambers rushes to kind of meet it and ends up poking into the back of his own net. But it was a footnote in what has been a really good pre-season for Villa. The kind of main takeaways from it are that Villa can control games, and that's really important, especially against European opposition. And I don't think it's any surprise that our last 2 games have been against side on the continent, playing away from home as well, which I think is really important. Villa look comfortable when in charge, and that's not always been the case. I think to be a top team, that's really what sets you apart. I think we've seen that in the Premier League, anyone can beat anyone. It's an old cliche on any given day. But it's how teams can control games to make sure that they can see out games, that they don't let other sides into games, that games don't become transitional. Villa's midfield, particularly the likes of Kamara and Luiz, have really come on in that regard to be sort of tempo dictators, especially when we are in the lead, that don't get Villa sucked into crazy games. And generally, Villa's games have been pretty routine, and I think that's probably the biggest compliment you can pay to an Emery side at the moment. We're unbeaten. Obviously, that kind of reflects all that stuff. That's one of the bigger points. And I think we've seen, there were a couple of people, down in the comments after the summer series campaign that sort of said that we didn't look great, that we didn't actually, we hadn't won, but we were also, we weren't great. We'd won just one of the games before that point. And hopefully the last 2 wins against Valencia and Lazio have gone some way to appease that. As I said, Coutinho looks sharp. There are some problems we've got to sort out. I'm not totally sure on Pau Torres at left back. I don't really think it is a kind of left back role. It's a really interesting role that we're seemingly trying to carve out just for him. And I think there are moments where it looks really good. Pau Torres is so good offensively, what he can do with the ball. Most of the centre-backs in Europe can't. But I think once you've seen what we can get from Moreno, it's quite hard to sort of settle into that. But it'd be interesting to see who Unai does go with. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it is Pau Torres at left back against Newcastle, considering Moreno is still out. And Luca Dean, not quite sure exactly how he fits into that squad. That's definitely one to keep an eye out, especially as we had those rumours after the Lazio games that he was also subject to interest from Saudi Arabia. On the whole, guys, Villa look good. That's my last note here. Villa look, and in capital letters, good. We look a really, really impressive team. It's hard to have a qualm with any of the business that we've done this summer, really. All of the players have come in and looked really, really good. Diaby, Tielemans, Torres, no doubt there'll be more through the door, but the business so far has been really promising. And for the first time in quite a while, Villa not only look impressive, but coming to the season with quite high expectations, not just from Villa fans, but from neutrals as well. Like, I've seen a lot of sort of people on Twitter and on social saying that Villa are a kind of outside threat for top 4 and everything like that. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. I don't think we'll be in a Champions League race next season. I don't think we need to be in a Champions League race next season. But there's a lot that is expected of us. And obviously that's good because it means that Villa will be feared opposition coming into the season. But it's been a while, probably not since the Championship really, have we gone into the season being a team that most are picking out to be in and around the top 6 at the end of the year. So it'd be interesting to see how Villa cope with that. But the draw for the Europa Conference League playoff is on Monday as well. So that's a big day for your calendar next week, as well as the big kickoff at the weekend at St James's Park. And you know that the Villa Filler podcast is the best place to stay on top of all that stuff. We'll be back as a duo next week as well. Dan Morgan will be back from his amazing work in the States with Goal. So make sure you all are subscribed. Make sure you hit that like button and comment down below what you thought of pre-season, what you thought of the win today. Who is your man of the match? Who's the MVP of pre-season for you? Who has stood out? Who are you most excited to see tear it up at B6 next season? Let me know. I'd love to have a conversation with you guys about that. Like I said, we'll be back as a duo next week. So stay safe. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, guys. Enjoy your Sunday. Love you all. And I'll see you next week. Up the Villa.